Right, what have we got tonight? Do a bit different tonight. I think we're going to do a show and tell. So we're going to do a how-to. So behind me we have two. Behind me we have two prime examples of gears knackered upness. Had a quick look at them. Think I know what's going on, but I'm not sure. So we'll go through the voyage of discovery. I've done nothing more than took this one up on the ramp and actually see what it's doing. And that one I just collected it yesterday and bought it in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my thought process on how I work out what's wrong with it. So the industry I work in IT anyway, and when I used to be more hands-on, one of the skills that we were measured on was how quickly we could fix things, which is basically how quickly you can identify what the problem is. And it's not always the most obvious, but there's an order you attack things, and it's kind of if it's the most likely, but it's going to take you 3 hours to prove that, you need to weigh up whether it's a possibility it could be something else, because there could be something else that you could check out, and it could only take you 30 seconds, 2 or 3 minutes to rule that out anyway. So it's kind of a fault finding process and hierarchy in how you tackle things. So, and it's a similar thing to this. Now, one of the other things I do, as well as my coaching, is as part of the coaching, I do lifeguarding as well, and you have to have a quite an advanced first aid certificate as part of that. So one of the things that you do is when you are looking at a casualty, it's signs and symptoms and history. And it's pretty much what you do these. So I treat these bikes as a casualty, right? Probably a bit more valuable casualty than I'd normally deal with, but a casualty nevertheless. So I'm looking for signs, symptoms, and history, right? Signs, symptoms, history. So signs. That's what I can see, what I can hear, what I observe it's doing, right? Symptoms is what the user tells me it's doing, or if I'm riding it, I feel it's doing, right? So that's a symptom. I can feel it. It's jumping a gear, it's squeaking, it's got a clunk, right? So that's what I feel. I might not necessarily be able to see where that clunk is, but I can feel it. It's a symptom, right? So the signs are your visible. You look over it. I can see something's worn. I can see something's broken. I can see something's not lined up. When I'm watching it do something, I can see it's jumping, right? So that's a sign. And then the other one, the history. Now this is the one everybody forgets about, and even in IT, everybody forgets about this one, and it is so important, right? History. What's changed, right? Now with bikes, things wear out, so they will wear out and generally break. But when you're working in IT, things that go wrong are generally caused by something else, right? So there's a history behind it. Did somebody deploy some software? Has somebody turned something else off? Has somebody put something new on the network? And it's similar with these. So it could be they've been to the bike shop and they've had something else fixed. While they were there, somebody's caught something or gone, oh, I'll just adjust that, and it sent it out of kilter. It could be they've wrapped it around a tree. It could be they left it out in the rain for 3 days. Anything like that, that's history. That's what I need to know. Has somebody else been touching it recently? Have you been fiddling with it recently? I need to know that because I need to eliminate these things. Now, I'm not necessarily going to take these as gospel, and I think Krusty One goes on about this a lot, and Watch Wes work particularly. So he takes with a pinch of salt what the user tells him, because oh yeah, it's been fine for the last 2 years, which probably means it's been fine for the last 2 weeks, or it hasn't run for a year, probably hasn't run for 10 years, to be honest. It's that kind of thing, but it does help you formulate your solutions. So what we're going to do, we'll do a quick M check on them first, because I need to do that anyway, just to see if there's any other issues, because an M check could highlight something else, right? I could have a back wheel that's not located properly and it's wobbling around, and that could be causing gear problems. So as I said, these have both got gear problems. So we're going to try and go through the thought process of working out what's wrong with it. And I'm pretty sure they've got two different things that are wrong with them. So we'll see. We'll see if I'm... That hurts my ribs. Oh. Hoping you can see that. Yes. Right, so I'm going to get the classic M check. Can you still see that? Yeah, just. Right, so starting front wheel. Jesus Christ. It's better. There you go, M check. Front wheel wobbly as anything. Skewer wasn't done up. Spin's okay, no problems there. No problems with the bearings. Forks are okay, I'm not going to press down too hard because my ribs are hurting. Headset. So, front brake. Just check there's no head knock. It's not a Planet X, so there shouldn't be. That's fine. Everything's turning good. There's nothing impeding the steering. Front's good. Right, let's move on. Crank. Feels smooth enough. Can't feel any play. Can't remember whether I swapped the bottom bracket. I don't think I've seen this bike actually before. I've done all his other bikes. Well, his other bike, which came in just before this, but that was a 2-minute fix. And it was gears as well. So I fixed that one. Sent it on its way. Right, pedals. They feel okay. There's no sign of any play in the bottom bracket. It seems to be moving smooth enough. And the freewheel's going well enough. So we'll take that as a win. Not going to do the gears because we'll do them up on the stand. Right, again, there's a bit of play in that back wheel. Let's see if it's just not fastened in. I'm getting a bit of movement in the back wheel. So we will check that. Seems to be smooth running well enough. Let me just check it is seated properly. Yeah, I can definitely feel something on the bearings. We will check the bearings. That's not the problem though. Right, so let's get this one up on the rack. Oh. And then just for the completeness, we'll just do a quick M check on this one. So same thing again. Front wheel, that's fine. Spin's great. Little bit of head knock, we'll tidy that up. It's not much for Planet X. Freewheel hubs, a little bit clunky, but I suspect it's because it's right down on the gears. We'll move it up. Yeah, that feels fine. I do need to check the chain on this one. In fact, that's something we haven't done on the other one either. That's better. It's going smoother now. Right, headset's done. Bottom bracket, it's fine. Pedals, fine. That's fine. Back wheel. Little bit of movement there, but I know these bearings do have a little bit of play in them anyway. Skewer's done up, so everything's fine now. Haven't bothered checking the back brakes. Back brakes are fine anyway. Let's get the device of doom out. So I don't know if you can see that. Nope, you can't see that. Yes, you can now. Right, so this has not had a chain changed, and it was bought second hand. So, oh, pleasantly surprised. No, that's good. It's got at least another 6 months in it, that, so no, that's good news. Right, I was slightly worried that part of the problem that was being reported might be a duff chain, but we've eliminated that. We'll just quickly check this one because we haven't checked this one. Ooh! Right, that needs a chain. It's gone through the first one quite comfortably. It is nearly through the next one. So it does need a new chain on it, but as you will see, that is not the problem with this one, because this has got a completely different fault. Right, bring you back shortly. Got to go make tea. Right, let's do this one first. So this is the Cannondale aluminium frame cross-country trail mountain bike. It's a 29er. And it has some tour forks, quick release hubs, and I don't know if I said 8-speed. I don't know what make the switchgear is. I've not seen microshift before, I'll be honest. I will be doing some Googling. It looks like it's a copy of the Shimano Dior Shadow group set in its kind of mechanics, but I think it's made out of resin. So never seen them then before, so that's interesting. We'll see how this performs. So apparently it's not shifting properly. I have had a quick squiz at it. That's interesting. That one's adjusting. That's taken back down there where it's supposed to be. Possibly on the wrong side. We'll stick a tie wrap on that because I suspect that's no, not that one. That one, yes. That's a bit too long. Anyway, right, that's beside the point. I've just noticed that tie wrap's off and it just wants bringing down there. It explains why the cable's not running right up there. It's not pulled far enough down. Right, let's see what it's doing then. So I tend to find it's best if you wind it all the way down to where it wants to go. Right, so that's on the bottom. Right, and I've just clicked, it's on the bottom, but I've just clicked it past 2. Right, that's important. So I've clicked it 1, nothing's happened. I've clicked it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it's not indexed right. 7. And I've run out. Right, so if you imagine that's 8, we're going to count the clicks again now. So it's not going any higher. I can't make it go any higher, and we are on gear number 8, 7, 6. So we've moved 3 gears. All right, so let's take it back down again now. So we go 1, 2, 3. We're already down. Let's hear the clicks. 4, 5, 6, 7, and it's run out of clicks. Right, I think we've either, right, so basic information. History, it's not had anything done to it. It's not been crashed or anything like that. Nobody's mucked about with it. Symptoms. I'm observing it's only doing 3 gears. The owner says it's only doing 3 gears. Right? We've observed that, so that's the symptoms. Right? So we've got history, symptoms, signs. And the symptoms were the rider was also saying that. Right? So signs now. So we've done symptoms, signs next. Right? So I'm just going to look at it. Right? Alignment on these screws, it's in the right place. So it's slightly down. I don't know if you can see that. I'm just going to struggle to get you in here. But if you look, this is right. Bring it back again. sorry, it ran out of storage because somebody forgot to format it. Right, so we've covered that. Signs are that this is the derailleur itself is set up right. There's no problems there. There's no sign it's bent. Right, so the next thing we need to have a look at is the cable. Now, the easy way to test the cable is to pull this out, because if it's snapped somewhere, it'll come out. Now, it's not snapped because we saw it moving, but that's not right. So it's either frayed or it's stretched really badly, but that's more than we can take up with that. Now, the other thing I'm noticing there is that there's a kink in the wire there. So I would put money on. Right. I would put money on the cable's moved in the holder. Right. I'm now looking at something else, and I've confirmed that, because that is being held up by the plastic. Somebody screwed that on, and they've screwed it on with it caught on the edge of the derailleur. So what we're going to do, we're going to just wind this in so it's all the way back down again, because I suspect somebody's been winding it out to fix it, and it's gradually been getting worse. Yep. So I think this has probably been getting worse for a while, and somebody's been adjusting it out and not realised that that is actually canted round. So I think that's in the wrong place. That needs moving round, either all the way round or under there, or I suspect it's supposed to sit on the other side of that. You can even see where it's chewed a bit of plastic off. Right, that's hard down. Never do it hard down. Always give it one half turn or one full turn, so you've got at least somewhere to wind it down if you've overdone this. Right, I'm looking at that. It looks like it's a 5mm. So we'll go find the 5mm. Because my back's flipping sore as anything, I am going to cheat and sit on here, and we're going to have a look where this is supposed to be. Right, that does look like that's supposed to catch there. Now, sometimes what you see is that there will actually be a helper line, which give you a clue as to where you are supposed to feed this round. I can't see that. Right. Oh, I can there. Right. So we'll shove that back in there. Now, I think this is supposed to go on like that. And that bent piece there is actually supposed to go around the bottom. So I'm just going to try and tighten it up like that. We'll see how that fits. Or doesn't. Because I think that's going to be slightly better than trying to put it around the other side. Right, I'm pretty sure that's how it's supposed to go. And then you feed this cable up and round out the other side of that. That would make a lot more sense. Now, the only thing that worries me is this has got slightly bent. So I'm just going to go over to the vise, and we're going to see if we can just straighten that out a bit. You can see it's got bent over a bit, so that just needs pulling back down. And you can see it's actually bent on the back, so I think if I whack it with a hammer, it'll be fine. Perfect. Yeah, just put it in the vise actually and let the vise crush that flat, and then just knock that over, and that's a perfect right angle now. So put the screw down somewhere. How many times can I fall over? Right. I'm wondering whether that washer should be under there as well, or whether that washer should be no, I think that's okay. Right. I have ordered the replacement chain for this. God, this is a fiddly. God, this is even worse than the early Shimano's. It does not want to. Does not want to play ball. Keep hold of the wire this time, because the wire jumped out then. That's what's causing the problems. And once we get it so it can't, the wire can't fall out, then I'm just going to keep some tension on the wire. Oh, it's going to be one of those nights. Doesn't have, I've got a box behind me, so even I'm sat down, I can't move the chair backwards and forwards, so it's even that's hurting my back. Right, let us see. So I've never done one of these before. Right, so that's not quite indexed. The lower gears were fine. The top one, it's managed to give it a little bit more to get it up. But I don't know if that's normal for this. Right, so that's all gears up. Let's see how it comes down before we adjust it. Don't forget it's a worn chain as well. So we'll give it one turn and try again. Let's start again. I'm overdoing it. Click, up, click. Give it another 2 clicks. It would not be far off then. That's a lot more positive now. Turn it half a turn back, half a click back. I think we were right where we were actually. So don't forget the chain is worn, so the chain will change better when we get the new chain on. Yeah, that's going nicely now. Yep, that's it, all good. Just check what it's like on the... right. The plot thickens, so we've got a similar issue with this one. It's not going all the way up. So have a quick look at what this one's up to. This one might just need some adjustment rather than Yeah, I think we'll just give this some adjustment. Try that. So sometimes you can adjust this on the fly. It is quite hard because you are forcing the adjuster against the chain. It won't like that. It's nearly going a bit further. Right, let's try taking it back down again. It's not actually locking in place, so I'm now wondering whether physically yeah, right. Yeah, it is. Right, so we've got two issues here. We've got it's not taking it across far enough, and with the cable adjuster, and also it's got a stop on it, so the limit adjuster needs adjusting. So I'll just grab it to see it from there. But that back screw I can see on the other side is actually touching hard, so it won't let this swing out far enough. So what we're going to do is going to put some pressure on it. I think that's the one. Could be wrong. No, it's not. It's this one. It's this one here. There you go. It's locked now. So I'll change gear now. Yeah, it's not brilliant. So we'll give that a bit more because I would put money on that. That's not going to let me adjust that any. It's very stiff as well. It might need a bit of yeah. I think that wants a bit of WD-40 as well as a bit of it's coming down okay. Just going to wind that out a bit further. Right, let us see now. Aha! Right, that is very stiff though. This whole mechanism is stiff, so I think it wants a little bit of love down there. See if we can find some magic go-go juice. Right. Just in case it's the... You can see it's not a brilliant place because that's just going to get everything from the back wheel. So I'll just work that in a bit. That's it. It is locking now anyway. That's all we were bothered about. Is it locking? It's going down okay. Probably could take a bit more out of that. Find a screwdriver. I'll sort of wind it up now till I see it move. And then wind it back down again. So that's better. Cool, all's good. So that was a combination of a sticky mechanism, which you can test by letting it drop all to the bottom and then moving it physically with your hand and feel if the mechanism itself is tight. If you've got open cables, you can also grab hold of the cables and pull them and feel if it's tight. You can also do the same on the back derailleur with that trick as well. So it's a combination of that pivot point there is not brilliant, and also it wasn't adjusted right. Its upper extent was too down, so you couldn't actually ratchet the adjuster up there. So when you're putting it, it wouldn't click into place. You couldn't physically push it that far, but that's fine now, and it's not catching, so all is good. A little bit of drag on the top gears, but you shouldn't be running top to top anyway, so you'd expect you'd be off by that point and you'd be on the granny gear. And the same with the bottom, you shouldn't be taking it all the way down. That's it. Good, good, good. All's working. So it's just catching. There we go. That's it. Just let it take the play out of that. That's it, stop creaking now. Right, one last quick whiz through the gears just for posterity on this one. There you go, that's all good. Right, we'll get that chain swapped out. Probably won't even bring you back for that one because this is all about the gears. Right, let's have a look at the other one. Well, you know, let's recap. So, the problem with this one was history, not that much history, nothing that gave us any clues. Symptoms, I only saw it change in 3 gears. The rider said it was only changing in 3 gears. Signs, you could see that kink up there suggested that had been clamped down there. These adjusters had been wound right out as well, and also when you looked at it, the actual clamp for the cable was in completely the wrong place, and I'm still not convinced whether that's supposed to go round, but that was up there, so that had been clamped on in the wrong place, and it was actually dug into the side, so you can see there's a piece of plastic broken out there. So we've moved it round, we've clamped it on, and everything seems to be good. We'll need to keep an eye on that. I do have my concerns about that. So that's that one. Same with this one at the front. We did the same process. We've got no history. The symptoms that we could see were it wasn't shifting all the way up, and the signs were you could see that the adjuster was bottoming out and it wasn't moving up, and also another symptom was you could feel the ratchet on the hand gear wasn't there. So combination of signs and symptoms meant that this wasn't a cable issue really. It was more of an adjustment and a lagginess in this. being a bit stiff. So I think we've bottomed that one out. We'll take this one down, get the other one up now, see what we can find with that. Right, back again. Let's look what you're looking at. We can do better than that. Let's get the whole bike in. Dogs are going nuts. Right. History. This one has been to an LBS, local bike shop. And it was serviced, and as part of the service they've replaced the gear cable, front and back. They've not, to my knowledge, changed anything else. The chain does look like the original chain. That's a Shimano. I know, I'll tell you now, that is a Shimano Tigra or 104 chain. Possibly. Oh, it could be. No, tell a lie, it's not. I'm looking at them rivets, they're not. They look more like SRAM. Let's see if we can see a PC number on it. My eyes are terrible. Yep, we can. What we got? PC something. Right, so it'll be a PC 1130 or something like that. Chain's fine anyway, don't need to worry about that. Quick visual inspection, I can't see that anything's damaged. No more than you'd normally expect. I am seeing that that's slightly off, but I'll bring you back to that one. Let's just do a quick sense check on it. Right, so immediately symptoms get you nice and close. I don't know if you'll probably hear it more than you can see it. Right, it's jumping, it's catching. So this goes with what I was saying. The derailleur is slightly too far this way. So I suspect that chain actually wants to be up in the other one. So we're going to test that theory in a minute. There you go. So I don't know if you saw what I did there. All I did is just gave that a little touch just to push it a little bit further across, and it's jumped up. So it was actually down an index. So I suspect a combination of a poor indexing adjustment initially and the fact that it's a new cable has meant that this cable has had a little bit of a stretch, and it's just enough stretch to now exacerbate the existing issue with it wasn't indexed properly. Now, I know you're saying I'm being a bit harsh here. The bike's only been out on one ride, and it was only just recently done. So cable stretch that you get when you put a new cable on doesn't happen instantaneously. It happens over a period of about 4 weeks of regular use, with the cable going up, down, tension on it, different connections. It beds in, settles down, and you get a little bit of what they call cable stretch. It's not necessarily stretch, it's just bedding in, a little bit of stretch in there. It doesn't happen straight away. So if your adjustment isn't bang on, right, it's going to happen straight away. Now, there is an argument that if you set your gears up absolutely spot on, even with cable stretch, you should not lose your indexing or even notice it. Now, here's another thing. So that gear cable they've used is actually very good quality, rolled, pre-stretched cable. I know that cable. That's an SRAM cable. It's either the SRAM or the Ultegra cable. They both look very similar, but I can tell rubbing my fingers on that is stainless steel, smooth rolled cable. I know, I'm a bit sad, but this is what I use on the bikes, right? It's a very good cable. You don't need to have a coating on it, and it runs really smooth. It's a little bit more expensive than normal cable. Weirdly, not as expensive as the coated cables. So here's a tip for you. Don't buy coated cables. Just buy pre-stretched, smooth rolled stainless steel cable. It's about $7.99 as opposed to a tenner for your coated stuff, and the coating comes off, causes all sorts of problems. Right, that's tip one. So I'm pretty sure now that if I take this all the way up, that we will find that that's where it should be. Now I've got to remember this is an SRAM, so I've got to keep my fingers on it. So if I'm right, this should go up one more, and it was one tooth out. Yep. Right, that's it. That we're at the top. So I'll just take it down now. Right, so that's what's up with it. You can hear it, it's clicking. It's wanting to go up, so it's too high up. So what we need to do is we need to adjust it back down. In fact, no, I'm going to stand corrected on that one, which makes sense because of when we took it up. If it was what I said before, I would have hit. So that's too far across. So the general rule is, remember, I've explained this before, if you imagine the chain's not there and you draw a line through the centre of the tooth, that line should pass through the outside of that tooth at the bottom. And it's not. They're almost completely across. So what it should look like is like that. So the outside of that tooth goes through the middle of that tooth, and what we're there is we're almost there. So all this wants is just a little bit of adjustment up. So I can never remember which way we're adjusting these. Now, what I'm worried about here is this looks like it's already wound out quite a long way. So I'm tempted to actually just wind it back in and adjust it. Yeah, somebody's tried to adjust this out already. That is loose as anything. That's just not been put on right. It's the same thing here. I've wound it all the way down. I'm just going to give it one full turn out. Then we're going to move that. I think they may have even put that on the wrong side as well. I'll cut them some slack with this because they are flipping annoying. It's very difficult to tell where that goes. So generally, unless you've got the instructions in the fitters, you can't tell with a lot of these. So yeah, they've put that on the wrong side. So that needed to go on the other side, I think. Let's have a look. No, it might. I'll cut some. I think it was in the right place. I think it just might have been in the wrong direction. So I think that should go over there and under there. Or maybe not, no, under that you can see, no, there's an exit hole. So that's where it should have been. I can't remember if that's where it was now. Ah. And around the back of that as well. That should be better now. Right, so we've got to make sure we've got a good amount of tension on that. Right, let's try that. A little bit of tension. Not so good with SRAMs, I'll be honest. Right, let's see where we've ended up. Right, I think we're going to go for an adjustment on this as well. I think the actual base adjustment is too low, and I think it's this one, but I could be wrong. Right, I think that's almost where it should be now. Of course, that's going to make that a bit slack, but oh, hold on. Right, so I need to be careful now. I've got to watch what's happening when I adjust it. I'm wondering whether this is, the hanger looks bent. Right, we'll go with it and just see what's happening. It's certainly jumping less. Interesting. I have to move you out of the balcony. Just making sure I'm actually doing the right one. Yeah. So we'll have to go fix the top one in a minute. Right, so it's definitely this one. So what we're going to do now is just keep winding this back until it comes down. I think I was to slack that off a bit. Low battery! Right, let's see what that's done for it. Aha! Right, so that's actually, top of that gear's changing nice now. Let's have a look, see where it's ended up. It looks okay. It's not jumping. Not jumping. Right, I've gone a bit aggressive on that one, so we'll wind that back. Needs a bit more. There we go. Need a bit of it over. Oops. Right on there. Put that with the screwdriver. Right, that seems to be running well. We are crossing there. Let's just see if it goes down okay now. That's nice. I'm not having to overextend it. It's going up. Let's take this one down. Just check it now. Boom, done. Oops. It's my usual trick with the SRAM. It's the only time I've done it. First time tonight I've done it. Not pressed it hard enough. I could just do it then, another twist out. I'm going to take that one back off that I put on. I don't think it needs it. Just make sure it's not going to jump in any of these now. Right, I call that a win. Ooh, my oil's leaking. Right inside my favourite tray and all. Disgusting. There we go, I'll just mop that up. I've got my screwdrivers. Right, so, bit of a weird one this one, so you've got to have your wits about you. Hold on, let me plug your microphone in. Can you hear me? Yeah, that's better. So, we had a few things that were up with this one. Cable wasn't in right. There's a little bit too much slack. It was over adjusted. The derailleur wasn't in the right place. It wasn't indexed right. And the low adjustment was slightly off, so it was too far this way. So we've adjusted that, got that in the right place. We did that basically by slackening this off completely, and it was up on the next gear up. So this is a 11-speed bike, so it was up on gear 10, and it wasn't coming down onto gear 11. So all I did is I adjusted the low adjustment until it went down, then went another half turn. That generally does it. Eyeballed it, and it was about where it should be for SRAM. I've forgotten SRAM is a little bit more aggressive. I do think the derailleur or the hanger might be slightly cocked to one side and bent, but it is working now, so I'm going to leave well enough alone with that one. So we've adjusted, we've put that in where it should be. We've adjusted that back down again and wound it back out and fed that, and we've adjusted the low. I did mess up the high one, so I had to go and had to go and do the low one, done the high one, had to go and do the low one on gear 1, because I'd turned the wrong one. So we've eyeballed those in. Same thing as before. It was just using what it was doing. So the way I worked it out in the end was when I took this cable out completely and slackened it off so there's no tension on it. So I took that right back, that nut, wound that in, then wound it back, made sure that this was slack and it was still up on that gear 10. So you knew it was the adjuster. So I adjusted the adjuster back down. So what's happened there is I suspect the adjuster wasn't quite right and it was just on the edge. They've put a cable in and not realised, and then tried to compensate by adjusting it out, if that makes sense, because that was out way too far. And you get some other weird stuff happening when you go up the edge of the adjuster. The adjuster starts flexing, so you start getting all sorts of weird things going up and down. So that's another thing to look out for. Always check your adjusters are wound in and then half back before you reset anything. Because if you wind these out too far, they actually start moving around. So when you put tension on, they actually rack over and you don't get the full movement of the cable. So what you'll get then is you'll get over adjustment at the bottom, under adjustment at the top. So as you wind it up, put it under pressure, it won't move the cable as far as it should do, but you'll be off the bottom and you'll find it'll be okay in the middle. So that's one thing that can cause that. The other is a frayed cable or a cable that's sticking in the sleeving somewhere or in the controller itself. So that was that. This front one, I think that's okay. I don't think there's any problem with that. It is quite stiff, but these generally are. The geometry that Planet X use, it's not as bad on these rivals. On the Force, I think that lever is a little bit longer. These kind of suffer from the same problem that the Ultigras have. So the Ultigra has this problem where you have to put an enormous amount of pressure just to get it to start to move. But that's because that lever is short, but it's even more this way. So you're almost pulling through the pivot to get it to go across. But anyway, this one's sorted. We'll just give it one last quick whirl through. Make sure you can see everything. I don't know if you can. You can see the back wheel and you can see that wheel. So we'll get in a bit closer. Yay, look at that. Right, we'll leave it on the big cog because I can't be bothered. So if you leave it, it's not clicking and ticking now. Yeah, you'd have to push them quite far with the SRAMs. I keep forgetting that. You get a bit spoiled with the Ultigris, but when it goes down, that's crisp, and it's not catching at all now. You almost have to hold it and wait for the SRAMs to change, and then just put a little bit more pressure on. There you go, that's good. Just do one quick one on the bottom. Just make sure when it's at the lower chain tension. We'll give that one half turn again. Yay, look at that. There you go. Right, so remember, look at what you can see it's doing. Take feedback on how you feel it's reacting, and then look at how it's set up for clues as to what's gone wrong. And most important, don't forget about the history. Right? Quite clean, this bike. It's out of all the Planet X Pro Carbons, this is my favourite one. They got it right. They had an opportunity to build the version 3 of this as a fantastic bike. All they needed to do was just take this frame, make it so it would take similar design to this, but just make it so it would take the a disc brake setup and put a through axle fitment on it, and it would have been perfect. The generation 3 with the disc brakes and the through axle. It's a lovely bike, don't get me wrong. It's all, the geometry's all there. It's just heavy. And I don't know why they've made it so heavy. I don't know what they've done, because these bikes their main selling point is they were flipping light. You know, we're talking their competitors were selling bikes for 1,000 to 1,500 more with worse group sets on that were heavier. Right? And Planet X came in and really upset the market. They brought out these Pro Carbon. They were really light bikes. They had very good group sets on. Most of them, when they first came out, had the Ultra group set. Maybe not always the crank, but they had Ultima group set on them. Ultra group set on them. And they were incredibly light. So you had a good group set and a light carbon bike for £1,000, I think they were retailing at, or just under. And the competition to get an Ultiga on a carbon frame at Specialized, you were looking at 2.5 and some bike. So you know but I don't know what went wrong, because this is a nice bike. They kind of addressed with a lot of the stuff. They put the cable routing inside because that was one of the big bugbears of the original bike. It didn't look pretty. The headset was a bit the steer tube at the front was a bit ugly, and it was external cable routing as well. So it was all a bit, you know, Heath Robinson. But this is a lovely looking frame. I mean, this is quite old, this bike, and you can see it's had some action, but it still looks brilliant. So yeah, bit of a shame there. Never mind. I'm sure they'll sort themselves out. So let's do a quick recap. It's okay, I'm looking at you. Right, let's do a watch Wes work style wrap up. So I'm the other WWW. I'm will work for wine. That's not even funny because I don't get paid for any of this. I generally do work for wine. Right, so the whole point of this one wasn't really, oh, we've got a bike, can we fix it? This was actually show you just some of my thought processes that I go through when I'm trying to fix gears. And it just happened that we got two bikes coming on the same day with gear issues, and they were completely different gear issues and with different history behind them. So if you remember this one, it wasn't indexed right when they swapped the cable over. It shouldn't have got any stretch on it. I think it just wasn't indexed properly. And they've just quickly gone through the gears and not realised it was catching at the bottom. And the main reason for that was the lower adjustment wasn't quite right. So I've adjusted that and ended up adjusting the top one because I buggered that one up anyway. The cable had been routed wrong as well on the cable clamp there. So we fixed that. And I think that was overly wound out as well. So there's possibly some play on that was causing problems. But the upshot was you could see what was going on. It was catching the chain, and it was doing it in several gears, not just one gear, which kind of says it's the indexing's out. So it's just a case of re-indexing it. And sometimes to do that, you've just got to go back to beginning. Now, you've seen me do this with the Ultigas and most of the SRAM ones, most of the Shimano ones. I can pretty much take a cable off, either derailleur up on its top and bottom stops, put the cable on, wind it out to a certain tension that I feel with my finger there, and I can go to the front and it will hit every gear. It'll be perfectly indexed. Yeah, I might finagle it, but it's indexed. You just get used to doing it. So sometimes actually, do you know what? Rather than try and work it out, just take the cable off and see what the derailleur's doing without the cable on, because that'll give you the clue as to whether it's catching or it's not adjusted right. Because sometimes the cable masks the fact that your stops aren't right. So just make sure that your stops are bang on the bottom, so they are slightly lower than the cable, and at the top, push it with your thumb. Make sure you can easily get slightly past, because you need that little bit of bump up and back down again just to take it across, but not enough so it catches the spokes. The idea is it wants a little bit of playing, so it's not enough to overbail the chain and throw it down the back of the cog, but enough so that you can get it just that little extra that you need to get it up and over. Especially as the chains wear out, it is harder to change gear because the chain will bend out the way of the jockey wheels, the baler wheel, sorry, the guide pulley at the top. Let's use the proper terminology. So the jockey wheel, that's the guide wheel at the top, will be pushing the chain, and as the chain gets worn, it'll just bend instead of actually just moving. So you really worn chain, they're awful. You can see there. You have to really double shift and all sorts of stuff. The other one was a bit more interesting because I'll be honest, I kind of worked out what was up with it, because when I first fetched it, it was only shifting gears in the middle. And then, so the indexing was obviously completely out, but it wouldn't even go down to the bottom gear. So I mucked about with it a bit, and I kind of realised the cable had just slipped in the clamp. But don't be presumptuous, because it wasn't until I had a proper look at it, because I was talking through the thought process, that I had a proper look at it, and I saw that the actual cable clamp was in the wrong place, and it actually cut into the plastic. So once we rotated it around, put it in the right place, it's clamped the cable a lot better, and it was bent as well. So we fixed that. So that's good. That's good to go. And it needs a new chain, that one. So don't assume. Always do an M check. One thing I will always say to everybody: when you get a bike in, whether it's your bike or you're doing a bike for somebody else, do an M check first, because then you know exactly what's up with that bike. Because you could send that bike back, and they'll go, "Oh, my forks are knackered now," right? And you've not even touched the forks, but you don't know whether they were knackered when they came. If you do an M check on it, you'll find out those forks are knackered. So I had one in the other day, and I did mention it. While I was doing the M check, I noticed that the lockout didn't work. So I mentioned it to Jerry. The lockout doesn't work. Yeah, it's rubbish, isn't it? Now, that bike could have come in and gone out again, and I've not checked that. And then they've ridden it, and actually something had gone wrong with the lockout. And the natural thing is you assume that because I'm the last one to touch it, I've done something to that fork and mucked about with it, right? So generally I won't touch something on a bike unless I've okayed it with them, right? But I know some places do. They fiddle with stuff. Oh, that's not quite right. I'll adjust that. And you'll see me do it sometimes, but I always tell them what I've done. So on that one when I've had to adjust the front mech as well, I'll tell them I've adjusted the front mech. I've got to check the bearings on the back wheel. So I will tell him that I think his back wheel bearings are a little bit slack, and I'll have a look at them and just check before we put it back together again. These Cannondales are a bit of a bugger for it, and it's one of the reasons why their cup and cone things fail, is because they don't tighten up enough, and they get a lot more wear than they would do, because there's a little bit of slop and shimmer with it. So I'll have a word with him. I'll tell him it needs a new chain, and I'll tell him I'll have a look at that. And if he wants me to have a look at the axle, I'll just check that out, because there is a bit of play in it. But again, like I said, do the M checks, find it yourself, because it annoys me when people bring bikes. I'm rambling on it a bit, but I get people who take the bikes and they pay 80, 90, £100 for a service at an LBS, and then they get it back, and then a week later something breaks on it, and I'll look at it and go, well, actually the LBS should have picked that up. They've done a service on the bike. They should have spotted that the pedals were knackered, or the chain, or at least the flipping. You would not believe the amount of bikes there's one bike shop around here. I'm not going to name him, but he is absolutely shocking. People pay quite a lot of money, and he's really sort of at the bottom end of but he's not. It's the really low end of the LBSs. It's not. It's proper old school, right? People pay quite a lot of money, and for some reason they seem to think that he's brilliant. And it's several times now I've had bikes in here that have been to him, and the first thing I've done is an M check on it, and the bike is literally a week past the service with him, and I stick the chain thing on it, and the chain's should have been changed a year ago. And it's like, well, how come he didn't pick that up, right? And he's also the one that just smears red grease over everything and claims that it's been serviced. So every single seal bearing on the bike will just have a layer of red grease squirted on it to make it look like he's done something. And it's quite obvious he hasn't. He's just covered it in red grease. All around the headstock there'll just be red grease. It's a sealed bearing in the headstock on most of these. If you had took it to pieces, you'd have seen it was a sealed bearing and gone, do you know what? There's not a lot I can do with that. I'll just clean it up, make sure it's running okay. Tick, job's a good one. Or check it. Oh, there's a bit of play in that. Do you want a new bearing shell in it? So yeah, that irritates me. That it's just, let's smear some brightly coloured grease over everybody and charge somebody 80, 90, 100 quid and tell them you've serviced the bike. So at least I've not had any evidence that he's told people he's put a chain. I have had one LBS in. It was not long back where he was told he'd had a new chain in, and he'd only done 6 months on that chain. And I dropped the spanner in, and it was quite obvious that that chain had not been changed in 3 years. So that, and I've deliberately not asked which bike shop it was. The only thing I do know is it's not that other one that I've just been on about. because it's over in Sheffield, and this one's a lot closer to here. I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to get into bother for slagging people off. But I know who he is, and I know he's taking the piss. So I don't often badmouth other people because I'm not a proper, I'm not a certified mechanic. I've just been doing this since I was about 6 years old, right? And hopefully you think hopefully you think I'm doing it all right. I think I'm doing it all right. I'll tell you one thing: there's not many local bike shops can build a wheel. And I'm going to do that soon because I haven't done it for probably about 20 years. So I might have to build a wheel soon. I might see if I can pick up some cheap parts off Tinterweb. Some expensive rim that somebody's got, or the hub, and pick up an expensive hub, and we'll build up a set of wheels like I used to do when I was a kid for a laugh. I did actually see a pair of Zondas, and one on the back wheel, it's cracked around one of the spokes, so you'd never use it on the road. But I suspect I can probably pick up a second-hand rim, just the rim, for next to nothing, and then obviously I'll just de-spoke it and re-spoke it with the new rim on. Be interesting to see if I've still got it. Anyway, right, let's wrap that up. Hopefully that's been useful. It's something a bit different this time. Hopefully next time my back's a bit better. We've got some good stuff coming up. I've got some work to do. I've been given 2 bikes. So the other, remember I did the skip bike a few weeks ago. Well, the other bike that got dumped in the skip at the same time that somebody else took, they've decided they don't want it. So that's ended up here now. So it's going to get the same treatment as the other one. It's not as bad, but I think we can do some upgrades on it, give it a service and send it out the door. It has got a few issues. I've given it an M check. But I've got a couple of spare parts kicking around, so I'm almost I could just clean it up, do a couple of bits and bobs and send it on its way. But actually, I might stick. I haven't decided yet. I might stick some of the bits out the parts bin because I've got some fairly decent parts in there, or I might save them for something else. I've got a bit of finagling to do on my bike. I've got to do some swapsies on the hubs and things, so we might do a show and tell on gears and hubs. And then somebody gave me a frame last weekend. Well, I thought it was just going to be a frame because I've got an Ultra group set, and I thought, well, if somebody gives me a frame, I'll just chuck the group set on it, see if I can pick up a set of wheels. So I've spotted a set of wheels for like 40 quid. They're fairly reasonably good wheels. They're similar to these Planet X. These are brilliant, good wheels. Them very similar to them. Paid 40 quid for them. They've even got tyres on, right? But when I got given this frame, the only thing that's not on this frame was a seat post, a saddle, and the wheels. Everything else is on. So I've got the wheels on order already. So I'm going to have a rummage around in here and see if I can find a seat post that fits in the hole. If not, it's probably about 10, 20 quid for a seat post, possibly a seat as well. And we'll see if we can build a bike up out of bits, and we'll send that on its way as well. So it's another Boardman. The TT bike's up for sale. That's gone on. So I've given that a quick once over. I've not bothered servicing it because it got serviced last year and I haven't run it since. So that's going to go on its way. So we've got 2 bikes to do up to sell. The TT's up for sale already, and potentially I've got a full Ultegra group set that's absolutely immaculate that I'm going to stick on for sale as well. I've already cleaned that. I chucked it all in the ultrasonic. So I was going to video that, but I'd got a lot on, so I couldn't be asked to do it. But we'll see. And I've got a set of carbon bars over there as well that I'm going to sell. I'm trying to clear some stuff out, so I can't see the point in holding on to it. I had kept a lot of the Ultegra stuff as spares for that bike because it's hard to get hold of it now, but I think it's getting to the point where I'm probably going to have to let the Holdsworth go within the next year or 2. I've got my eye on something. Well, I might as well tell you. I've kind of decided the next bike I'm going to get is I'm not going to go down the Planet X route. Sorry, Planet X. I do love your bikes, and I do particularly the Holdsworths. But you don't do the bike I want for the price I want to pay for it. So if I'm going to have to pay more money, I'm going to get a different bike. So I think at the moment the Holdsworths are a bit overpriced for what they are, and for a little bit more, I could get something a lot better. So then I start looking down. Well, if that's something a lot better, if I can get it second hand, then and because there's a lot of them, so it's a giant Propel but I want the Advanced Pro Zero, so it's got through axles, disc brakes, and it's got Di2 shifting on it. You can pick a second-hand one of them up for $2.5 to $3 but I want a particular colour. There's a burnt orange fade into matte black version that they do. So I'm going to keep an eye out for that. Obviously I've got to get it in a small. But to be honest, if I can't get it in that colour, just trying to find a small one for the price I want to pay. But they all seem to come in between $2.5 and $3.5 with the D2i and the through axles on. So we'll keep an eye out for that. And it's got everything I want. It's got a full carbon cockpit on it. It's one piece, handlebars. You know, I did look the other day to see if it was worthwhile sticking a D2i on Reggie, but she's not on the disc brakes. And the problem is, if I'm going to build it up to a kind of a race style bike, then I need disc brakes really. So at the moment, I've bought a couple of fancy wheels for it, and we'll run it for another year and have a bit of a laugh. And I'll keep them discs, because them discs will sell all day long. Somebody will always buy them off me. Those deep dish Planet X's. So anyway, right, waffle done. Hope that was useful. It was a bit of a different one. A lot of me talking. So that's probably just turned you off anyway. Keep tuned. There's lots of stuff coming. It would be nice if you liked and subscribed. I'm not playing the algorithm at the moment. I'm picking people up steadily. It's not taking off at all hugely, but then I'm not spending a lot of time doing it. I don't spend a lot of time editing. If I spend 0 time editing these videos, I try and edit while I'm filming. So you get the warts and all. I don't cut anything out. I don't redo anything. You get what I record. I don't trim. I very rarely trim anything out. The only thing I might do is speed stuff up if it's a bit long, which this one's probably going to end up being a bit long because I've just spent the last 20 minutes waffling. Anyway, right, job's a good one, or a good one, and we'll get in touch with the owners and get these on the way. Right,